the people who are in that Silicon Valley bubble, and it is a little bubble of people, they've got one frame of reference. To them, the entire world is full of coders trying to, start running a startup, flipping, sliding, and all that is literally their reality. They have no concept of, let's say, a small media businesses that runs 3 trade shows a year, turns over £5 million, and is quite happy. And to them, that business is an anathema. They can't understand it. I went into business once where we did an audit, and across all the little subscriptions, they're close to 40 SaaS tools in the business, 40. And we managed to save 90,000 a year just by cutting those, because there's also an overlap, because that's the other thing that happens in business. What operations within a media business could be handed off to AI? Where is the human? What's that symbiotic work relationship? Because I think I don't think I've already proven it. This thing of like, I'm doing something, AI do something, it comes back. It's jarring. It gets you to real crap. Everybody's talking about AI slop out there. That is how you get AI slop.
So, hi everyone, and welcome back. I'm Paulina, and we are back in Bits and Bolts. And today we have Adam Malik, all the way from UK with us, who spent over 2 decades launching massive tech trade shows and leading digital transformation for more or less also media companies. Welcome to the show, Adam. Great to have you.
Thank you very much, Paulina. Thank you for inviting me. Good to be here, and thank you, the audience, for watching. Without you, this would be a very, very boring thing, right, Paulina? We need people to watch us.
We try at least, yeah. And for people who don't know you, maybe you can introduce yourself in few words. Who you are, what are you doing, what are you interested in?
I'll try and be very brief. I'll try and be very, very brief, and I'll hopefully try and make the summary short and somewhat interesting. So going all the way back to the start, I did a degree in aeronautical engineering with computing. And there's a lesson here to anybody watching, like, don't always listen to your parents, because my parents said this computing thing is just not going to happen. Stick with engineering. So I did that, and I'm going to fast forward, because otherwise, 20 minutes of this podcast will be me talking about me. I, by accident, landed in doing events, and it was technology events, and I loved it because I love tech. I think one of my most exciting moments when I was a kid was buying a magazine which had reams and reams of code in it. Back when that was a thing, right? Floppy disks were really expensive, so you had to buy these stupid magazines, rewrite all the code to basically have the game you want to play. So I've always been like, love tech. I sort of loved the human side of it as well. So the trade show thing was really good. And then I kind of stayed in that sort of domain. And then you progress. And then I sort of launched my own businesses. I did some management buyouts, and then I said, I'm bored with this. I think bored's the wrong word. I think I've got the T-shirt, right? Just so many times you can do the same thing. And what I've always loved doing is I was always the technology person. So I suppose I was a CTO before the word CTO was a thing in those companies. And then I started consulting and saying, let me help digital transformation with media businesses, because I've got a lot of, I know the business and I understand tech and I know how to apply it. I can save people a lot of money. I can hopefully make them some money by getting things to look. And that's when the digital transformation consultant journey started. And Yeah, it was cool for a while.
And yeah, quite a journey. And I think you mean transformation. We also, if especially people in tech, I think because technology is changing very fast. I think we also in some kind of way dopamine addicted. So we like to change from one place to the other, or from one role to the other as well.
You're so right. It's and I think for someone who's doing digital transformation, what you just hit on there is a real balance to hit. Because I recognize I myself, for me as a person, I like the shiny new thing, you know. But if you're running a business, having a consultant or a transformation consultant with you who's constantly coming, oh, here's another way you can do it. It becomes exhausting for them because that's not how they want to, and they want a little bit predictability. It's like going. Um, so when I was doing those projects, I always said it's capped. It's 3 months, and I go in a bit like a method actor. I'm fully in, and then I finish and I go and I don't stay. So I'm not the person who says, that stuff I told you to do that way. I don't email them 6 months later. There's a better way. They're on their own now.
Yeah, otherwise you have reorg after reorg after reorg. I was when I was working for the corporate, it was always felt like we finished one and we already were starting another one, or even we didn't finish the first one. We were already starting another one every 3 to 6 months when management was changing, and that's just, I think, also natural ways of things that technology and stuff transform, and then we need to adapt to it. And in tech, it's much faster than almost any other industry.
Yeah, and you also sometimes, what you just said, you also sometimes have that conflict then as well, because the tech moves, but sometimes you're working in an industry where the industry itself doesn't move, right? So that creates a whole different tension, because you look at the people who are doing the P&L and everything, and they say, oh, P&L is fine. Why do we need yet another, transformation project? And you're right. I've been in big companies, and I think after a while, I hate to say it, maybe the IT departments in those big companies, because they're working in very solid, boring organizations, like if you're the energy supplier, like you run the grid in Denmark, you don't want to be innovating and breaking things, right? Because 100 homes or 1,000 homes don't get electricity. Oh, but we tried a new switch. Way.
Yeah, exactly. It works. Let's leave it.
Exactly right.
And going from digital transformation, let's go into topic which we initially thought to maybe talk about, which is human in the loop from both, and also within AI. But before we dive into it, we talked about you said something as ChatGPT release was day zero for all of us.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to try and put it into context for the viewers when I say day zero. So I was running there's a digital transformation business. It's making good. It was making good money. ChatGPT comes along, and there's just a bunch of stuff that we would ship to clients, and I'll give you little examples so it's accessible to maybe non-technical people who are watching this. That we will ship to clients that we will get rewarded for either financially or monetarily. It's like I remember we wrote a whole booklet, document, cheat sheet of how to write HTML for emails, because the system a particular client used, you still had to kind of go into that. And it's like, you don't need that anymore. You should go into ChatGPT and like, yeah, I need some HTML. It's for an email, so make sure A, B, and C is in it. You construct the prompt and you get it. Another one we did was regex for marketers, because for some stupid reason, I can't even remember the system, right? They needed to put in regex, so we had regex cheat codes. Work right, really simple, but yeah, I've been using regex for years, and I still don't get it myself, right?
Me
But
neither.
so you, yeah. so it's like, those are just two off the top of my head examples, but it's just little things like that started compounding, and I was like, you know what, the way um, the value of work um, has changed. That equation, that was my first sort of insight. We used to sell, oh, that'll be some hours, there's value and so on, but that equation was sort of broken by ChatGPT. And then, I think we were talking off air, and then you suddenly got this storm of hype, and everybody's, oh my God, if you pull this from there and that from there, and you can now get a 3,000 word article, or just all that nonsense. And then for me, the other thing that happened, it's the first time in history, and I've been through the CRM wave, I've been through the wave of businesses first having websites and using them commercially. Back in the day, when if you needed to do that, you had to pay it was like £3,000 for a leased line and a server, and you had to do all of the shit yourself, right? You didn't just go to some cloud platform and type in, I need a website. I've been through all of those waves. And this one is so different because I feel like it created some sort of weird synchronicity that no other wave has had. So it's not just a new technology, but everybody piled in and in a synchronous way started adapting it. Suddenly your spreadsheet started getting AI, even if it might not need it. Your website suddenly started getting AI because you put alt text in. It just became so pervasive. The money became so pervasive. The hype became. It touched absolutely everything. And I don't think, at a tangent, the technology world has ever seen anything like that and has got to grips with it. And in this crazy race we're in, all the pricing models are all over the place. When Google first came out with Gemini, it was £20, $20, whatever, extra subscription. Then they dropped that. Now it's part of it. Then it's become credits. Then it's consumption. And so suddenly those very stable ways of interacting with technology are gone, because it's credit based, it's consumption based, it's subscription based and credit based, and it's just so different how it changes everything. And I was processing all of this, and I was like, you need to stop. In order for you to carry on being relevant, you need to stop, and you need to really understand how this technology can work in your domain or for yourself personally, whatever. Because I don't know, I kind of feel like, there's some people who have the front to say that they're gurus after having read one chapter of a book, right? For me, that doesn't work, right? I need to know to a reasonably robust extent what the tech is like and how it can work. Right? So if you called me up tomorrow and say, "Hey, implement a CRM system," I can do that in my sleep. I've done probably close to 30, 40 of these things. I've got the playbook. It's written. I could almost say to someone, say, here, read this, and you can do it yourself, right? Because it's very defined. And this is just very novel. It's ground zero. I call it the COVID of tech. It just happened everywhere.
No, definitely it's everywhere, and it's quite interesting to see that suddenly people who are usually were using just Office 365, and that's all. Like, I don't know, my parents who work in insurance, and suddenly they need to learn how to work with AI, or my partner who works in construction business, and they suddenly trying to find a way to use it where they're not very tech savvy. That's a interesting perspective. And on the other angle, for example, my 15-year-old brother is using it. So you have whole spectrum of people who pretty much everyone needs to learn of it, or they're gonna be behind soon.
Exactly. And so there is this almost pervasive belief that if you aren't using it, you're going to be left behind. There's maybe an entire whole podcast about how true that is and whether you should maybe be intelligent and say, yeah, you know what, I just need to know enough because I'm an electrician, right? I unscrew sockets, check the wiring and everything, screw it back in. I don't need to know about AI, right? So I think I think we've created this somewhat global myth that if everybody's not working with it, you're left behind. Now, if you're in knowledge work, that may well be true, but yeah. What have you seen? Because I like your story about what was it like? Here's some AI, try and figure out how it works, because it's that's the other thing that I'm seeing is like people are saying there must be a way for AI to help us, and they don't really have a plan.
I think, it's from different sides. From one side, people start, if they want to start using it, they should, not only read about it or take 10,000 courses from people who teach it. I mean, it's good to understand the basics, but not everyone needs to know, what's under the AI. Some people, majority of people just need to know how to use it and how to use it in secure way. So, I had conversation with my brother, with my father. Don't put, security. Don't you can use it this and this. How do you use prompt? How can you specify it for your own needs? And what you shouldn't put into it. And for them, at this stage, is enough. But for people who actually build it, it's, I think, nice to dive deep into it and start using it and start building with it. But I don't think it's always the go-to thing for the best case. Sometimes it's overheat. We don't need to, sometimes the small automation is enough versus putting AI into it. Or some people start calling automation AI. And like, it's a bit like a DevOps 10 years ago. We want to buy DevOps, want to put DevOps everywhere. And now it's the same with AI, kind of.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think you've touched on something that it's like, I like what you said. Like sometimes the simple automation still works, and AI is actually sometimes quite an expensive way of doing something.
Yeah,
Like update this file as opposed to Control C, Control V. I mean, if you're on a Mac, it's something different, but
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's cheaper, faster, and simpler to do it something, directly. The same like, okay, even with physical technology, we use Bluetooth, but in many cases we still use cable. And okay, maybe we get a bit newer cable, but it's still old good cable, which we use, even with the headphones right now, because the quality is better. Or we don't need, Bluetooth for everything, as an example.
So do you think there's a real danger that, again, because of the newness of this technology and the novelty of it as well, that people want to go to it almost because they want to kind of see what it would do rather than having the ability to do that triaging, like you said, and we're using some very basic examples like you know one of the one of the things that I've seen is like people have used ChatGPT to go into something and create like, here are two documents, is which one is similar to the other one, and if the AI will give you that answer, but it's a very expensive way of getting the answer. You can create, if you want to create similarities, there's other much cheaper, more robust ways of doing it. So do you just feel like people just want to play because they feel like they're missing out if they're not putting it in?
I think it's a mix, you have one from business side that, people look into like, hey, we're gonna miss out unless we're gonna use it and unless we're gonna, have something what is called AI, even if it's not AI. And another thing, there is a curiosity, in a lot of people, like, oh, now I can, for tech people, like, oh, now I can have a website and so on. But I think, there is whole process, like, okay, you can have a website, but you still need someone to being able to check, for example, if the system or website is secure, if it's scalable, if it's correctly done. And that, that goes back to, what we talked before, human in the loop part. That okay, it's great to have curiosity and it's great to have, interest in what is on the hype, but I don't think it should be always go-to solution. And if you do it because of your curiosity, you should be aware of other stuff which we need to do. Example, one of my people who I see they work in marketing, the girl done, simple page in the Lovable for something, and I'm looking into hosting it, and you have Lovable DNS, for it. I'm like, okay, it doesn't really look professional. You have the label made in Lovable. I'm like, sure, do it in Lovable, but export it to being able to make it look professional, especially as you sell something on it.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think, yeah, I think in some cases like this, like what you're talking about, that marketing scenario, I think it does offer up great opportunities because the marketeer can very rapidly get to what they actually want and then hand it off. Because in the past, there was probably a tension where, if we stay with that marketing journey, I was working in a business where they had a web team, and anything to do with the web had to go through the web team. So the marketing people, like, every time they thought of an idea, they'd almost like sigh in despair, and they go, right, we have to write the Word document, send it to the web team. The web team says they're busy, and it comes back. Da, 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 da. But what you're saying now with AI, you can go in, you can go, da, da, da. Here you go, web team. This is exactly what I want. And what you're saying is like going now, and they go, yeah, we'll take it and we'll make it professional, right? And put it on. So that the person who it's trying to convince that give us $3,000 doesn't see at the bottom, made by Lovable with some shonky IP address at the top. So yeah, I
Exactly.
think
So
what you've just
yeah. Yeah,
sorry,
so
you're
I
going to say
think,
something.
sorry, exactly. So I think, it's good for prototyping or from also, getting what's in your head to show to the others in a much easier way. But I don't think, it's replacing tech people. I think you also mentioned somewhere that, it's much further horizon for AI to replace us in some way for the Silicon Valley jobs and claims
Oh, 100,
compared to it.
oh, 100%. Look, I've been through that entire wave because I decided to, like, okay, I said, how do we do this? And the first part of my crazy experiment was like going, oh, Adam, figure out how you can work with AI, because once you've done that, you can maybe teach other people, but you need to have gone through it before. You said that earlier on. Sorry, I'm saying you because like this, I'm pointing like this, Paulina, because you're there on my screen, right? And I had every subscription, every single subscription. I think I was paying like probably like it was nearly close to $500 a month for 3 months. Like everything, I had everything. I Claude, I ChatGPT, and where I'm going with this is that, so I went through all the hype cycles. Like, oh my god, this can replace me completely. It can do everything. To or maybe it can't, or maybe it can a little bit, and then why is everybody saying 20, like every year, 2 years ahead was going to be the year when AI suddenly wakes up, and comes marching down the road like Terminator. And I was like, where's all this coming from? It's just money, Paulina. It's just money. I think it's just so simple for these guys to be able to go. And they're all guys as well, right? That's a whole different conversation. For these guys to go to someone who has money and say, guess what? I've got some tech where if you go into a business, they'll be able to cut their workforce in half. So give me some money, because the finance people will like go, oh my God, if someone came to me and said, hey, I've got some tech that will allow you to lose half your people, let's park to one side the moral, ethical responsibilities or whatever of a business. But the CEOs of these companies, they're just interested in spreadsheets, you know, and the bigger the business, the more people are just numbers on a spreadsheet. So if you go to them and you say, okay, I've got this tech that will save you a whole lot of money, what are they going to say? Yes. And then the finance people who who are putting trillions into this tech, for them it's just a sales plan, right? It's a really simple thing. Say, oh my God, yeah, I'd buy this tech, therefore everybody else must buy it. Here you go, here's $1 trillion. So that's why all of that happened. Because when you actually start working with it, you're like going, don't get me wrong, it's very clever tech. It's very clever. And what it does is, I still get amazed once in a while because, they're making the products better and blah, 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 and so on. Blah, blah, blah. But that's where I came to, I latched onto this human in the loop thing. And, there are two definitions of it. I feel like one definition is a bit like rubber stamping, and that's not my belief of it. But if you can work symbiotically with it, 100%, it's great. But is it any way good enough to be creative, imaginative, and so on? And I think on that note, I think the people who are in that Silicon Valley bubble, and it is a little bubble of people, they've got one frame of reference. To them, the entire world is full of coders trying to, start running a startup, flipping, sliding, and all that. That is literally their reality. They have no concept of, let's say, a small media businesses that runs 3 trade shows a year, turns over £5 million, and is quite happy. And to them, that business is an anathema. They can't understand it. So if in their world you can codify everything, they've shot themselves in the foot because, the generative models, when you're looking at something very deterministic, like JavaScript or SQL or something like that, you have no license to be creative, and a function is written in a certain way. If conditions are written in a certain way, that you can't just be, you know what, I don't want to use the word if, I don't feel like it, I'm going to use while or whatever, and that was a thing in programming for a while. They're done. So for that, I think there'll be a lot of disruption. If you're a junior programmer, a lot of disruption. But once you start moving up the stack, if you're a systems person, like even a little example, I do a lot of work in BigQuery for data analysis, so seeing how things are going on my project. The GPT will write very good queries for me, but consistently get stuff wrong. That is basic. Where I have to go like, no, BigQuery SQL is not like standard SQL. You have to put the CTE at the top or insert merge statement is slightly constructed differently. You still need to be able to know that. Now, you could argue that it'll get better over time, and for sure it will. But the bigger your system, the more symbiotic I think you need to be with human and this generative AI. And then if your system becomes mission critical, like it runs a hospital, we forget that these AI engines, they're just prediction and probability engine. You just need one little change in the prompt or a character, and it's like a study in the butterfly effect, and the outcome can change. And if you have a mission critical system, that can create a disaster. So you have to be very careful, I think, about how much intelligence we give these things credit for, and how we play with it. You got me off on a hobby horse, Paulina. I just went off on one.
No, but I think
I'm going to
it's
stop talking now.
it's very important topic, and it's very often missed out, in my opinion, because everyone is talking AI, how to automate stuff and so on, but we're not talking a lot about flaws about it. And I couldn't agree more that one thing is, for example, it's taking basic stuff wrong. I ask the agent sometimes run the function or write the function, putting function on the top before imports. I'm like, come on, it's basics, or it's putting spaghetti code overcomplicated instead of, by default using components which we have in particular repository, or by reusing, it's reinventing the wheel 10 times as well. And then we're looping. And other way, as you mentioned also, okay, one thing, the complexity, that's a killer for it. Another thing, probability. I think we in tech know it, but people out of tech or the business side, there was, okay, AI, it's smart and that's all. They don't know how it actually works, and they don't want to know. And they forget the limitations of it as well. And as you mentioned also, there are critical infrastructure or critical programs which we cannot have errors. And with AI, it's also tech. It's still tech. Now, but if it's smarter tech, it's still tech. It can fail. Of course, human can fail as well, but you also need to get in the loop that tech can fail.
100%. And, when I made this crazy decision of like going, okay, the first phase is Adam, you figure out how to work with it. The second phase was, okay, how can I apply it to a business? And I knocked on the door of some past clients and say, "Hey, can I have a play?" And they were like, "No, mate, this is too new. You can't just play around with. We've got customers. I was like, "Fair enough." So I've kind of launched my own media business where I'm putting stuff out there about AI to help small businesses understand and how to utilize it. And I think that's you picked up one of my LinkedIn posts on that. And to be useful, but also selfishly for me to understand, okay, what operations within a media business could be handed off to AI? Where is the human? What's that symbiotic work relationship? Because I think in well, I don't think I've already proven it. This thing of like I'm doing something, AI do something, it comes back. That is very jarring. It gets you to real crap. Everybody's talking about AI slop out there. That is how you get AI slop. But if you create it symbiotically, um, then it becomes really interesting. But you need to understand, going back to what we were saying, the nuances of how the system works. You need to really know that it's a prediction engine. You need to really know that actually it matters what you tell it and how you tell it in order to get information. You need to be comfortable with the fact that it'll go wrong, and sometimes comically wrong. So you need guardrails, again, that word that keeps coming out. But those guardrails can't then be something that's programmed. It all needs to be in a system. And I can see a vision for it. It'll definitely make us work more productive. But I don't think it's as much a displacement thing as Silicon Valley would maybe like. I think there are going to be some really new cool jobs coming out. I can see the job of a technical creative, you know, um, who'd be someone who knows how to chain these diffusion models, because Flux Laura might be very good of creating images of me standing on the beach. The other one is very good of taking that image, turning it into video. The other one is very good at synthesizing voice. The other one is and that sort of, a bit like when DevOps first became a thing. Yeah, the two things, right? It's a different kind of creativity, and I think it'd be very cool. So for the first time, after 18 months, I can start to almost write job specs for new jobs, and that was quite a cool moment when I realized this. Hang on a minute, I think there might be something in here.
Yeah, the new jobs, and we already seen some of it. We've seen, prompt engineering, AI architect, you have
Don't you
AI
think
slash
prompt
something.
engineering? Don't you think prompt engineering is the most bullshit job, though?
Yeah, but I think, what goes
I'm
under it, I
glad you
think
agreed.
one thing which I think it could be beneficial from it, to teach people how to use AI properly, because I think see huge gap in it, and it's for both tech people but also non-tech people, because not all tech people, are diving into AI.
True, true, true. I think I always find with the prompt engineering when I watch those examples, I think the biggest mistake people make is that they try and make their prompts longer and longer. And I've found that actually the art is to try and make them shorter. It gets you a better result, right?
I think make them shorter, but you also have to give them enough to being able, because otherwise they go a bit too far away. If you completely, disgrace, you need to be able to describe them what do they need still.
Yeah,
I think so. It's
yeah.
it's a balance game a bit, how long it should be, but also to give them enough information.
Do you know the people who'd be very good at that are editors? You
Yeah.
know, they've spent their entire life getting long essays from people like me and and making them into digestible, readable content. What was it Oscar Wilde said? He said, what was his quote? I'm sorry for the length of this letter. I didn't have time to edit it properly. So I think that's prompt engineering in a nutshell.
So how do you decide which, we talk about a lot of different aspects and, evolving with AI kind of, but how do you decide, which part of the process should have a human touch or human in the loop?
Paulina, what you're basically saying is, Adam, get back to the point. You've digressed way too much.
No, I'm just, I
Which
knew
is
that you,
absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. So look, that's a really good question, and I have struggled with it. I'm still struggling with it. I don't have an answer. But what I ended up having to do is, for the first time, like, let me try and think of an accessible example to the audience. Like, okay, the creation of an article, for example, right? Let's take that. When you give it to a human who's been to university, studied journalism and all that sort of stuff, they know lots of things, and you can say to them, it's like a, or you can give them a voice note and say, here are 5 things that I really believed, and so on. Here are some of the things. Go and make it into a nice article. Now you can do the same with AI, but it'll end up writing it like a tech paper because that's how it's been trained. Or in the early days, it would delve into everything. Every paragraph would be, as we delve into the fantastic world of blah 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 blah, right? Because so it can generate the perceived required output, which is 4,000 words, because that's the right number for SEO or any rubbish like that. The creation. So what I had to do, to explain the analogy a little bit more, I had to literally I talked to a few friends who are editors and just completely chunk out this guy. What do we go through to create a great article that we just intuitively know, because we read it and we go, oh, that sentence will pop. Someone will relate to that, right? Yeah. How do you really chunk it? Where does research come in? How do you triage research? How do you do this? How do you do that? And then it spun up this massive mirror board of every single tiny step. And showed it to a friend, and she said, I've never seen this much detail in creating an article. I was like, well, but I feel like I need to map out this amount of detail to really see where the AI plays a role and where the human plays a role. And then I kind of moved those sticky notes, and I've called it my AI canvas. So at the top is, the parts that the human is just inherently will always deliver more value than AI. In the middle is, some automation tools that move stuff around, and at the bottom are agentic or prompted AI work or whatever, or very systemized work, like, here are the 8 searches that would relate to the article. Go off and do the search, shove it into a bucket, make it queryable so that I can check it. So basically, I could just explode that very simple piece of work, to figure out what the symbiotic relationship is, with the prescribed outcome at the end of it, that if I do that, my experiment of a one-man media business would have more chance of success, because I can then create good articles that are readable and valuable with a higher cadence and more robustness. Because I think Google did the world a disservice when they said that long articles get ranked higher because everybody just started writing long shit. Sorry to swear, you're gonna have to edit it out. But and that's where
We
we
can
ended up
swear
with
here.
those. Good. Well, that's how you ended up with those recipe sites. This is like you look up for you look up a recipe for, I don't know, spaghetti carbonara. You get to the recipe because it says recipe for spaghetti carbonara. The first 5 paragraphs is about how this person traveled through Italy, met some people, blah, 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 all that crap, right? All I want is spaghetti carbonara. So my idea of creating valuable articles is, how do I create something that gives the recipe for the question that this article is trying to answer? And that's why I had to explode it. And so where does AI come in? How do you synthesize the text? And I've now got stuff up on Google that's ranking really well, and it's a reasonably long article. One of them is about agentic commerce, and I put it through the AI plagiarism engines, and it was zero AI detected. So, but that wasn't a con job. That was because the process was so exploded that the human value was inherently retained in the final product. I
Yeah,
keep
so
doing this because I'm imagining this mirror board in my head.
yeah, so even when you worked with AI, you actually gave it so much value, but so you used AI for your benefit. So you make your work easier, but you're showing the benefit which you are sharing with people or with audience. So
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of the key skills of being good at digital transformation is you gotta you got to zero in on what is the CVO, what is the customer value outcome or the commercially valuable outcome of, in this case, an article. And because we've been writing articles for so long, most people really can't answer that, right? They're like, oh, it's because if I can create 100 articles a day, I'll be indexed by Google. That's not really the value outcome. The value outcome of any content that you create, surely, maybe I'm wrong, is to transmit a message that you believe in that is of value to the audience that consumes it. That's what it is.
yeah, exactly. And you wanna get to the point also, actually, what are we talking about? You don't care, as example with carbonara. You don't care that they went to Italy, they made Italians, they shared the recipe with them. You just want a recipe to being able to cook this carbonara. And for example, that's my
Exactly
big
right.
problem with majority of AI models. Like sometimes I want answer in 2 sentences and not in 20.
Yeah, and look, from my world in publishing, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the other thing where I want to push it a little bit further is we all consume information in a different way, right? There are well-known gender differences. There are well-known age differences. Like the older you are, you're more likely to read the whole thing and all that sort of stuff. There's also multimodality. Some people like to listen to stuff. Some people want to read it. Some people just want the summary soundbite, and so on. And that for me is now where the next stage of in this journey and what I'm trying to create with AI could become really interesting, whereby you go, the old thing was we have an article, we may have a video that's related to the article, there's a little link. What if you could offer what you're trying to say, like, one of my big messages, which I suppose is why we're here, is that this human in the loop thing cannot be a rubber stamping thing. It needs to be symbiotic. And, what if you can offer that content in a multimodal way? So if a 14-year-old, and I'm using that because my son's 14, who's got the attention span of like 2 seconds, hits it, they can get the thing because there is a little video that says this is about this and this is why it's important, right? And I think that is, that to me is so exciting, because without AI, you being able to make every article or piece of content that multimodal, you couldn't do it, right?
No, I think we don't
Yeah.
cover it. And we also, majority of the people, I don't think they are aware of it. Because, okay, as you mentioned, your 14-year-old son or my 15-year-old brother, it's the same generation. The attention span is to, a bit of the seconds, max 3, and that's all. And
Yeah.
when you take my grandparents, which are around 80s, and everyone in between, and, my grandma gonna read usually, whole article, whole something. And my generation, which it's somewhere in between. We have sometimes we have longer attention span than 15-year-old, but we are not. It takes also faster for us to get bored than my grandparents or something. And then it's my parents' generation in the 50s. So we if we can cover, as you say, everyone, then we have bigger audience. Then we can.
Yeah, exactly, exactly right. And also, if you really commit to that multimodality, which is something we're really excited about for the next sort of 3 months, because I want to see how far I can push it. One of the other things was that when you look at these sort of e-readers, right? Because I was talking to this about a friend of mine. He was like, "Oh, well, just plug in an e-reader and it'll read it out." But if you've ever listened to how those e-readers read, oh my God, you wouldn't be engaged in it. It's like even the better ones. But now with AI, where I was playing around with a tool where you can give the voice direction, like emphasize this, like become animated at this point because it's really and so on, right? It has the potential of making that execution, if you deliver your article multimodally and you say, hey, you can read it, or you can watch the video, or you can actually download it and listen to it on the move or whatever. Each of those moments of consumption, moments of interaction, should be as joyful and as pleasurable and as well executed as they possibly can be, right? Not some afterthought. Um, so And that's where I start getting excited about AI, because it can make that stuff happen. And then in my world, like, I feel like if we can commit to that, and if that kind of becomes normal, that'll create a ton of jobs.
Yeah, that, and you kind of provide also personal experience, something what usually it's more expensive to get to being able. I see the same trend, one of the acquaintances of mine, they pitched the idea and they got quite a big funding for having personalized website. So, for example, you have website, but what I see on the website and what you see on the website, that's two different things. And that's problem they're trying to solve with AI. So I think in here, it's a big trend which we are not hitting yet with, having higher, more personalized experience, which used to come with the high cost. coming for everyone, kind of. And as you say, it's gonna probably create a lot of jobs as well, because companies gonna be interested in it, because then you can fit your product to wider audience.
Exactly right. And that's a really cool example, because that for you execution up until now has been rubbish on every platform, because it's been entirely made by data joins, right? You watch this film, this is for you. No, it's not. It never works, because when I was watching that film, I was really happy, but now I'm a bit depressed because I've watched another stupid AI video. So you've got to, all of that. But in order to make that happen as well, though, going back to the beginning of my journey, people really need to understand how this technology works, because that vision can't be executed without you completely exploding the current process, exploding how the data is hosted and tagged. Because one of my other experiments, I realized that my data now needs AI metadata, right? You used to have metadata, and for people who are watching, metadata is data about data. Now you need AI metadata, which is maybe what looks like a prompt or a context, so that the AI engines know that this is all about this. Otherwise, they just guess and blow up your dashboard, which is what happened.
Exactly. And you're creating a business called Digitizing Events, and you're building a one-person media operation that has already replaced 24K a year SaaS subscriptions through AI. Can you share more about it?
So that was very cool, because I mean, as much as me saying, "Oh, Adam, do this to learn how it applies," and this is maybe a lesson for anybody else who's trying to do that within their business, I immediately defaulted to type. I was like, okay, if I'm going to have a media business and I need a website and hosting, I need that solution for my cookie consent. I need this solution for the optimizing of the images, blah, blah, blah. The next thing you knew, I had a list of SaaS products that I've implemented in other businesses. They're very good products. And I was like, Adam, are you really thinking properly about how you're going to launch this with this new tooling? And I sat down for a second. I was like, yeah, probably not. Cut a long story short, I again did a very similar thing that I did with the article. I exploded it all, and I was like, okay, that's useful. That's like a cookie. Yeah, we need it. Do I need the £24 a month subscription, or can I work with Claude in this case and create the JavaScript and shove the consent mode into GA4? Yes, I can. Money saved. The next one. If I'm going to have a fast, zippy website, I want all my images optimized. Do I want to pay for the add-on, or do I use Claude and ChatGPT to create a image optimizing service that I can run through Make to give me 5 optimized versions for each breakpoint? Now, some of these are bonkers scenarios, and maybe people wouldn't activate it. For me, it was also part of a journey. So, what's possible, what isn't possible, right? But that again, that would have been another. I think that add-on was another £20 or something like that, and it's all adds up, right? These little tiny things. The biggest one was I wanted to do all my content creation in Google Docs, because it's easy to share, it's easy to collaborate when I have other people and so on. And then what was the requirement? The requirement was take a Google Doc and push it into the CMS. oh my God, I kid you not, Paulina, I was looking around for a solution for doing that. The cheapest one was, and it was limited. Oh, you can do like 10 a month or something stupid like that. I think about £80. I know. So this is what I mean, right? They're little tiny point problems. This is not a normal question, right? Can I put Google Docs into my CMS because I'm running my publishing workflow? It's maybe very unique to publishing or whatever, but it's in the aggregate. There must be enough people asking this question because people have built a SaaS product for it.
Yeah, if you have
So
this problem, other people have this problem.
exactly. So I built it myself. With some help from our AI friends, but it was done. It's robust. It works. Each push, because I'm doing all the math behind it, is about 10 cents of compute.
And that's much cheaper than £80. And then we put £8 per push.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, so it's like again, I had to explode. Explode maybe is the wrong word, but you have to really unpick the old way. And you have to be committed to saying that, okay, I'm going to commit to this, which is easy for me because, you know, at the moment it's phase one. You know, maybe if this experiment of a media business works and you have customers and so on, you can maybe you might want to be less risky, but it still doesn't matter, right? If this particular scenario fails and the push doesn't happen, you rerun it. It's not, you know, what we were talking about earlier. It's not keeping the lights on at a hospital. It
It can fail.
it can fail. It can fail, and I think that's also how you should look at some of these things, right? Does it need to be bulletproof?
Exactly.
No, 98% is good enough. And
Yeah,
then there's a whole bunch of
80-20
those.
rule and so on, depending on where
Exactly right,
what use case are we
exactly right,
talking?
exactly right, exactly right. Um, So for me, I'm just finishing this article. I'm calling it the coder in the pocket because that is something that in a small business you never really had, or when you did bring it up and you said, "Hey, we could maybe code this," you know, people get like allergic reactions to it if they're not naturally, you know, that way minded. They're like, oh my God, code it. Oh my God, that's going to cost a lot of money. And I'm going to have to write a spec, and then the spec is going to go. So it's like horses for courses. There are times when this stuff can execute and give you valuable stuff. You know, I'm not saying here that you should go and code your entire business critical monolith stack with AI. You know, I I mean, never say never. I think that's just stupid and crazy. But there are little tiny things that you can offload now, and you can tap into really cheap compute and get it done.
Yeah, make your life easier where you can.
Yeah, yeah. And that was the other big thing for me. Is just like, you know, one of my experiment rules is that for as long as possible, it's a one-person business because I want to see how far things get pushed. Now, there will come a time when that just becomes unsustainable. But while that constraint is there for the experiment and it's true, then I need to imagine workflows so that I don't get cognitive overload, right? I can't be doing everything.
No, it's impossible,
So
especially when you run
exactly.
solo.
So I built a dash where every automation is like, it looks like like an old school airplane cockpit. It's got lots of buttons, and I know this one does that automation. That I just go tick 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 tick, and stuff happens.
And I think you pointed to really interesting problem, and especially I think there is a higher boom right now of people who go or solo business, solopreneurship, and so on. And you have to usually do it all kind of mindset from marketing, accounting, sales, delivery value, and so on. And what comes with it is cognitive overload. which you mentioned, and also tool fatigue, because we have you have I have at least 10 tools, or more. And when we multiply, because we have SaaS for this and SaaS for that and SaaS for that,
Yeah.
And that's very interesting problem, which I think is not really solved yet too well, in my opinion.
No, it isn't. And, my direction of travel of trying to solve that is for a start to be mindful of it, because it's so easy to go, go onto Google or spin up Perplexity and say, research me some SaaS tools that do this. Right? The next thing you know, you're walking around carrying. Actually, that reminds me. Is I went into business once where we did an audit, and across all the little subscriptions, they're close to 40 SaaS tools in the business. 40. And we managed to save 90,000 a year just by cutting those, because there's also an overlap, because that's the other thing that happens in business. People never really pay attention to the new features. So suddenly where one SaaS tool solved a problem, now this one does the same, so you can deprecate it, and you're never really managing that. And I think it's a big problem, and I do think AI can be a solution there, because when you've got a very discrete point thing, like with this dashboard that I've got, when I want to do some research and it's late, and I spin up let's put to one side how good you think Perplexity is, but just the initial research, the report comes in. I don't want to read it. I just click a button and it synthesizes it into voice, sends it to my phone, and I listen to it when I go for a walk.
Exactly, that's one. And for
that product would have
tools,
cost me another 50 quid.
yeah, this and also SaaS fatigue. Actually, if someone would do scan all my subscription and tell me on regular basis what I can get rid of, I would gladly pay for something like that.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Huh. That's probably possible, isn't it? Because you just have to monitor all the feature releases.
Yeah, all the feature releases, and see, where is the overlap versus what we are using or something.
That's your next business idea, Paulina. Go and build it.
I know what
you haven't got enough to do.
No, I don't. Definitely, I don't. But if someone want to build it, go ahead. But you talk also about AI triangle, personal productivity, business productivity, and business models. Why is personal productivity the base, and why can't a company just keep a business model change?
Right. So, context here. So, I've worked for big companies, big multinationals. I have, but they haven't been the majority of my career. And even for those, I think this is true. And with this technology, I won't go over old ground because we've covered a lot of that in this podcast. In order for you to activate it, you need to know how it works. And because it's so pervasive, and what is happening, it's a bit like what you described, with your partner. The company goes, we've got AI, you got to use it. They aren't saying you need to use it like this because we've tested. They're just saying you've got to use it and hoping something will happen. So people are working with. So that personal productivity is almost like the foundation of, if you challenge yourself and go, how can I use this to be better at my job, get better output? And it's also okay to win back time so I can go to the gym more, whatever it is. If you start using it like that, your talent in your business will start building an awareness of how this tool works, and you can then take them on a journey and say, okay, how do we now change our business processes? Because the other thing that we've talked to on this podcast is that you can't just make the same business process go faster, right? You have to unpick it and re-put it together. And sometimes it looks exactly the same, might do, right? But 9 times out of 10, it won't. So in order for a team to get together and do that, they need to have an understanding of how this tool works. And then the business model thing is, in my career, there has been maybe only once when a business that I've worked in has created a small shift in business models or operating. 9 times out of 10, this stuff happens to you through external forces. And that's why in my triangle, I'll leave it the last, because it's an external pressure. Like if suddenly, because of all this AI, SaaS subscriptions go up by 25%, that's an external pressure. They might affect your business model. You need to be able to react to that. And the two other sides of the triangle, the personal productivity and the business productivity, are making you resilient to any of those shockwaves that will come. AI will create these little waves of like mini disruption ripples and so on. This is, I'm willing to go on the record as like SaaS subscriptions are going to go up. I've already seen that myself in the ones I'm still keeping. Other people have seen it. So how are you ready to do that? Because the chances of you, unless you've got big, massive funding, like you mentioned, your friends who've got this funding to create these very hyper personalized pages, they could change a global business model, maybe, right, across all media sites. But sometimes if you're so in the weeds doing your day-to-day as an independent business, I think you just need to be ready to react. I think the chances of you creating a new business model are slim. I think maybe you can change the way you do business, but the business model, I don't think so. I might be wrong, if that makes any sense.
It does, and definitely, time will show if we are right or wrong. We never fully know.
We
But
don't. Life would be boring if we knew what was going to happen.
yeah, exactly. Prices are going up on everything, as we can see, and AI and compute and how it does together and how it influences the prices. That's just the beginning, I think. Especially with what we see, how market is changing, and next, we had booming AI providers. Now everything what goes with infrastructure or the providers of the hardware, that's on next level of the companies which gonna go up for sure, and everything gonna get more expensive.
100%. If you want to buy a laptop, buy it now.
Definitely. And they've said that it cannot get worse than COVID 5 years ago, and AI is probably not the last wave either, but maybe on our times. Anyway, I think we talked for quite a bit, so I will be wrapping up. I have 2 things for you before we finish. Rapid fire round of 5 questions, 6. So if you can, answer with what comes first to your mind to it, and then, we can wrap up and say where people can find you if they wanna work for you and follow you for your work.
Okay, sure. So you're going to fire some questions at me and I'll just answer them.
Yes.
Okay.
If your AI gained perfect human empathy overnight, what's the first thing it would apologize for in the tech world?
Writing too many lines of code.
Pick AI buzzword that you hear often but doesn't make any sense.
Oh, there's so many. I can't be. I honestly can't think of one. I just think that there's so many AI. Yeah, I'm
Too
drawing
many
a
of them.
blank, Paulina. I'm drawing a blank. I'm really sorry.
No
I
worry.
wish I had a very quick answer to that, but I don't.
What's the
It'll
one
come
AI?
to me after the podcast.
Yeah, we can always, edit it. What's the one AI tool you've tested that actually lived up to the hype?
Oh, I've literally just recently tested a diffusion model called WAN, for creating video with where you've recorded your sound and it
Mhm.
comes together. And it's truly amazing in terms of how it does the lip syncing and all of that. It's yeah, I think that'd be the one. That'd be the one at the moment. There might be others, but yeah, that's the one where I've like gone. Actually, this kind of nails it. Yeah,
Great. Finish the sentence. By 2027, the role of the traditional CTO will be,
traditional CTO.
or the
Yeah, will be
STO,
obsolete.
obsolete.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Most ridiculous thing you have tried to do with AI agent that kind of worked.
And it worked or it didn't work.
It worked. Or if it didn't work, you have example. We can also go this way.
Okay, the most ridiculous thing I tried to do was I ran an automation that would take one of the articles, synthesize a small summary, shove it into a whole bunch of other automations that ran across the entire gamut, maybe about 7 diffusion models, pulled everything back because it's only 15-minute clips, shoved it together, ran my cloud service I coded, which runs FFmpeg, stitched it all together and shoved all of that into a cloud storage bucket. And it worked.
Well, impressive. And the
Yeah,
last
it
one,
was.
go.
No, carry on.
Okay. Which AI app do you use the most in your daily work life?
Claude.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Thank you very much. That was fun. I hope you enjoyed it too. And yeah.
definitely. So where people can
Yeah.
find you if they want to know more about what you're doing, what do you offer, and what are you trying out and experimenting with?
So the experiment is digitizingevents.com. So go on there. That's where I'm doing that's the tip of the iceberg. That's the output. And actually the output of it is also like that crazy thing I described. I need to play catch up. I'm writing them up and I'm saying, hey, here's how I did it. And this is why I did it, because I want to create these multimodal things so people can see how it's all working. So yeah, digitizing events, and LinkedIn is the primary social channel. And a friend of mine has told me that I need to go on TikTok, but I'm not there yet. And I'm not even sure whether I can be. I don't know. Mentally, that might be a step too far.
I think you should try. There, you have a lot.
Sorry?
I think you should try. You have a lot of interesting stuff to say.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, maybe.
Time will show.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
But thanks again for your time, and it was great to talk.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
That's it for today's edition of the Bits and Bolts with Paulina. Did you like what you heard? Of course you do. Tell your friends.